Friend, Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. Shalom Bayit is the cultivation of peace and harmony within our families. It is one of the noble goals of Judaism. But ironically, in the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, Shalom Bayit is very hard to find. Ironically, this book is filled with interfamily strife. For example, Cain kills his brother Abel. Sarah and Abraham have a rocky marriage at times. Isaac and Ishmael become alienated from each other. And in our portion, we have the culmination of one of the worst family conflicts. The struggle between the twins, Jacob and Esau. Jacob manipulates the birthright from Esau and cheats him of his father's blessing. And the last thing we know about their relationship before this week's reading is that Jacob is terrified that his brother will kill him. But after years of separation, of marriage, the birth of his children, the acquisition of wealth, Jacob seeks some sort of shalom bayit, some kind of peace within the family. And he sends a message to Esau, summarizing what has happened to him during their separation. And I quote, "I send you a message to my Lord in the hope of gaining your favor." In Jacob's messengers report what happens. "We came to your brother Esau. He himself is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him." Jacob is terrified. He believes that there will be a battle and there will be bloodshed, and perhaps he and his family will be killed. And at that moment, he prays to God, and I quote, "Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, else I fear he may come and strike me down, mothers and children alike." Jacob sends an abundance of cattle as a peace offering. And we quote, "For he reasoned that these gifts will reduce Esau's animosity towards him." And as he sees Esau approaching, Jacob prostrates himself before Esau. And then in response, Esau takes the initiative, run towards his brother, and they embrace. Jacob introduces his family to Esau, and Esau questions, "Why all the gifts?" And Jacob says, "Accept my gifts as a kind of peace offering." And then the next 5 verses are the most important. Let me share them with you. "And Esau said, 'Let us start our journey, and I will proceed at your pace.' But he said to him, 'My Lord knows that the children are frail, and that the flocks and herds which are nursing are a care to me. If they are driven hard a single day, all the flocks will die. Let my Lord go on ahead of his servant while I travel slowly at the pace of the cattle before me and at the pace of the children until I come to my Lord in Seir.' And then Esau says in response, 'Let me assign to you some of men who are with me.' But Jacob responds, 'Oh no, my Lord is too kind to me.' So Esau started back that day on his way to Seir, but Jacob journeyed on to cattle. That is why the place was called Sukkot. Esau seeks a joint future where they will be united, 2 brothers together. Yet as Esau travels south, Jacob declines that offer and chooses to go north. Now, some will say that what I've described is some kind of reconciliation, a healing, a form of shalom bayit, peace within the family. But when you read it, that's not the case at all. That doesn't happen. Here's my proof. Jacob never addresses Esau by name. He addresses him, "My Lord, my servant." They don't spend any real time with each other, getting to know each other. Jacob refused the offer of a journey together. They don't even really say goodbye to each other. And here is what's most lacking: any reflection on what has happened in the past, an examination of how the conflict has arisen. No ownership of anything, a plight encounter, some niceties, but no common future, no renewed love, not much of anything, a failed reconciliation. What would a real reconciliation have meant in this context? Here is an example from a total different perspective from this past week. F.W. de Klerk died. He was the South Africa's last white president who opened the door to black majority rule by releasing Nelson Mandela from prison. By the mid-1980s, the apartheid government came under increasing pressure from large-scale black unrest at home and from international sanctions. And Mr. de Klerk took over as president in February 1989, and 1 month later, he won a general election and earned a solid governing majority. In October 1989, he released 6 of Mandela's comrades from life sentences. He met 3 times with Mandela, who had served 27 years of a life sentence for seeking to overthrow the regime. Mandela recalled in his biography, Mr. de Klerk seemed to be making an attempt to truly understand. De Klerk made a televised address on February 2nd, 1990, in that the election had placed our country on a road to drastic change, and announced that he planned to free Mandela. He also said that he would end the banning of long-outlawed African National Congress, which was the main organization seeking to overthrow apartheid, in open talks about the country's future. Now, the history is too complicated for me to get into all the details, but we know eventually Mandela became president. And there was fear that there would be bloodshed and retribution, but that didn't happen. Mandela and his supporters took the path of reparative justice. It was not about who would be punished. It was peace through direct engagement. Mandela understood that healing had to be the priority. In order to heal, both sides, black victims and white persecutors, had to confront each other directly. Both sides had to come to terms with the past, warts and all, and forgive, but not forget. In order to initiate a formal healing and reconciliation process, President Mandela established what has been known as the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. And the goal was, and I quote from its charter, provide for the investigation of the nature, causes, and extent of gross violations of human rights, which occurred during the conflict of the past. It will also attempt to restore the civil and human dignities of the victims, and will grant amnesty to those who have committed certain political crimes. And in this way, the Commission will seek to promote national unity and reconciliation. The victims and perpetrators confronted each other directly. Witnesses who could identify the victims of the gross human rights were invited to make statements about their experiences. Perpetrators of violence could also give testimony and request amnesty from both civil and criminal prosecution. And Mandela made this incredible statement, and I quote, "My mission is to liberate the oppressed and the oppressor both." Mandela believed that national unity and reconciliation would be accomplished only through uncovering the truth. And I quote, "We all suffered, so as a nation we want to redeem and reconstruct ourselves." Now, we know the history. The process didn't resolve everything, but it created the possibility of moving forward. South Africa is not a perfect society by any means. South Africa is a country of severe economic disparity and political instability. It is often not a safe place. And de Klerk never took personal responsibility for his part in the human rights violations of apartheid. All of his obituaries that were printed this past week speaks about that. Yet South Africa is now a majority black, multiracial country of nearly 60 million people, and there was no bloodbath. There is no healing without direct confrontation, without truth-telling, without the recognition of the suffering of the victims and the culpability of the persecutors. The pain on both sides need to be understood and accepted. And this is how it must be with us. Our lives can be mired in interpersonal conflict. Families can be torn apart because of conflict and distrust. Societies can be destabilized by painful history. And how can it be healed? By open discussion, by telling the truth, the airing of grievances, the acceptance of human fallibility, never to forget what has transpired, but recognizing that the past cannot be a weight that prevents us from moving forward to a better future, filled with reconciliation and peace. Jacob and Esau failed. They did not achieve that, unfortunately, and what a shame. But the history of South Africa and the wisdom of Mandela show us that there is another way. And I'm inspired by the words of Joseph Campbell, the great expert in mythology, who said, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." Shabbat Shalom. We are going